The psychodrama of old Belfast unfold each night it seems. The reels replaying in my head, so vivid are my dreams. Another death in North Belfast, two screams that no one hears, as blood run out of children's wounds, while holding back the tears. We fought to breathe and cried aloud, as kids protected streets, left mental scars of all sorts, mixed up like bags of sweets. Used, abused, left or right, mood swings up and down. The victims of the so-called conflict, not all beneath the ground. Untold damage overlooked, as kids' pleads went unheard. We wanted to be children, not frightened nor be scared. The story of a Belfast child has been told throughout the time, as terror ripped through Belfast streets, child victims was its crime.
Hello everybody, and welcome once again to our parlour. For those of us who are old enough will remember what the Troubles were like, and our guest today has grown up as a young child through the Troubles in the middle of bombings, raids and everything else that happened during the Troubles. He has written two books, one a book of poetry and the other one a book of his life, Memoirs of a Belfast Boy. So I want you to stay with us and listen to Liam, for he has a very interesting story to tell. And not only that, he's a very colourful and interesting character. Liam, it is great to have you with us today.
It's nice to be
and
here.
You've written two books, one of them called Dragged Up Through the Troubles, which is your book of poetry, and the other one, Memoirs of a Belfast Boy. And they really give great description of what it was like as a child in the midst of the Troubles. So tell us first of all where you were born and where you grew up, and a little bit about your early days.
Right, I was born in 1965 and I grew up in the New Lodge Road. My mother was from Carrickhill and my father was from Harden Street. And we lived on the New Lodge Road all our lives, you know, basically, once I got married. I think it was 8.5. Me and my brother were helping the milkman, and I jumped off the wrong side onto the road, and a car hit me, and I fractured my skull. I was in a coma for 3 months, and when I came out of the coma, I'd lost my memory completely. I didn't know my mother and my father, nobody. There was only one person I recognised, and that was my granny. But everything else, it was just a blank slate. So my interpretations of the Troubles is, I lost all the, you know when your mother says, don't stick that in the plug, you'll get electric shock. I lost all that through losing my memory. It was kind of like trial and error back then, do you know what I mean? So I just remember, like one of the first days in life that I can remember is walking out my ma's front door in the New Lodge Road in the middle of a full-scale riot. A car just exploded. You know, it was in fire, just went up in the air. Baton rounds getting fired. The sky was alight with petrol bombs. They were like falling stars, and I was just standing there. I didn't know who I was, what I was, or even where I was. And I just remember my mum coming out and throwing her arms around me, get in, because I didn't know what was happening. And the two of us, she pulled me in the hall, the two of us fell on the ground, and I looked at her and I seen the fear in her face. I mean, like, I can't really explain it, you know, just, you know, and because that was my mother, like my newfound mother as such, the rage that I had was just uncontrollable. I just remember standing my mommy up, bringing her in, setting her down on the kitchen, and me just running out the door into the middle of the crowd and screaming. And you know, so I just didn't understand what was happening. That was kind of my first earliest childhood memories that I can remember. Do you know what I mean? And it was just violence, you know, and carnage and all this here. So my anger had no bounds. Do you know what I mean? And I just seemed to be furious all the time. You know, like I was in primary 1 when I was 10.5. My brother was a year younger than me, and he was in primary 6. So I was learning how to read and write, and you know, and I thought I was a giant. Because I remember going home one day and saying to my ma, am I a giant? And she busted out laughing. She says, what do you mean are you a giant? This is a memory, it's just funny stories. And my brother turned around and says, Ma, did you hear him? Is he a giant? Because I was sitting on the wee Tory chairs that you sit on primary 1. And I was as big as the teacher. So all the kids thought I was a gent because they just assumed that I was the same age as them. And I was a big child, if you know what I mean.
Of course, yeah.
I was like 5.5 foot, like, you know what I mean. So the only thing I had was street sense. Everything else, it was kind of no sense, if you know what I mean, because I didn't understand fear. I didn't understand, just all the basics that you learn from your baby. When you learn how to walk, talk, and that bonding you have with your parents. So I was just finding all this out as I was going through the troubles. I was 10.5 years of age. It was the first time I tried to take my life, and I couldn't understand what was happening. That's how much it affected my brain of all the damage that I seen, like the British Army putting our door in and kicking me down. Yeah, listen, when you read the book, there's a part in it, where my daddy was interned and all, and I was holding my sisters back at three of my sisters back at the bottom of the stairs. The British Army had kicked the door in, and there was the cops outside, and one of them had his foot on the back of my dad's neck, and the other one had his foot on his, like a hip, and my ma was in the kitchen, and she was trying to get over to tell the kids, because the girls were screaming, and I was holding them back, and I remember the British Army, don't move, what, like that there, the English was Cockney, whatever it was, and my ma went to move like that, and he kicked her, and see the rage I had. Some of the poems that I've written, it's my interpretation of like what we felt at night lying in bed, where even your mothers don't see your pain. Do you know what I mean? You're on the blankets, and and you're just hiding away from the world, and you just pray to God that you get through the next day. I grew up in Belfast in the shadow of death. Hellfire's all around me here, sucking my breath. I look in my head, and what do I see? A psychopath, a sociopath, and me make three. We laugh at that moment in time, because rules doesn't matter here, living the crime. The hate for the 5-0, the filth and the swine. Dopamine's distortion of normality's fine. I'm foaming at the mouth like a rabid dog. A patter bomb on one hand getting ready to log. It takes into the sky and it's leaving a trail. A wave of destruction, it's a final nail. Anger, rage and suffering eating our lives. We grew up fast with nothing sharpening knives. By the time that I was 10, I had a gun up to my head. Told the British Army just to shoot me dead. I raised my arms up to God in a venomous scream. Can somebody wake me from my post-traumatic dream? I was always led to believe that the Protestants got everything. They had all the jobs. They had, and the Catholics were hard done by. Nobody had nothing. So I must have had a death wish one night. So I actually wandered through Tigers Bay, and I was shocked. I thought I was going to walk on a yellow brick road or something. I don't know.
Down the Shankill, you said.
And then I walked up a Crumlin Road down the Shankill, and listen, there was exactly the same people, like out Allsburg trolleys, Wayne was standing on the street. Alcoholism was really bad. That's how people kind of, on both sides of the community.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, it's the working class fighting the working class. This is never going to end. Yeah. You're almost fighting for, I don't know, survival rather than, for anything else.
Rather than a flag.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like they get fed, clothed, just all your basics. It just seemed to be always fighting about everything, So I was kind of shocked, that they were going through exactly what we went through, just on a different side of the community. So I met this girl. It was the only soft thing around I grew up in the New Lodge Road. Everything just seemed hard and, crazy. But when Denise was there, everything just seemed soft. And it was just, that's the only time my emotions ever changed. So we actually kissed when I was 15, moved in together at 18, married at 20, and we had a tremendous life together. Just, she was a singer and all, and done ads, and she was in theatre, and our house at the weekend was my nieces and nephews, Brona, Ciara, Damien, Christopher, my two kids, Maryann and Shay, like all the kids used to come down, and they had the fire boards and the high heels. It was like a comedy show, and the kids loved, all the nieces and nephews loved coming down. But then what happened was, she was diagnosed with cancer. I suppose it would be 21 years ago now, and everything just changed. Okay, the first 5 years was hard enough, so we tried just to get through it. Well, for the 5, you have a target to aim for. Everything just changed, we actually kind of wrapped ourselves up in kind of like a wee love bubble, just me, her and the 2 kids. And she didn't want to see people because her hair fell out, and and she had chemo leakage, and her arm near melted, and she was sick all the time, and it was so. But we just thought, right, 5 years, we'll go through the first 5 years.
It was hard for you then.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was
Main
as I say, a carer type thing. You know what I mean? So, like my son was only 3 when she was diagnosed, so he was with. He doesn't remember anything before his mummy had cancer. He can't remember. Even when we talk now, he says, "Dad, I can't remember any time in my life without my mummy's cancer being on it." So that affected him. It affected the 2 children, immensely. So the first 5 years was hard, and then she didn't get the all clear. And then what happened was her septin had just come out. Her septin was this new cancer treatment that came out about 10,
right.
But back then, and we actually noticed going to the cancer centre like once a week, sometimes twice a week over the years. There's times that the people you get friendly with, my wife's in getting treatment, and I'm outside, and I'm talking, I'm a talking machine, and I like, just making,
of course,
people coffees, and do you want this, do you want that, because that's just the way I was brought up, So, then you actually notice that you don't see all the regular faces again, and it starts to hit you that these people are passing away.
Oh,
do you know what I mean? So you're living with this always constantly in your brain. There's going to come a time when we're not going to be here, and someone's going to be thinking, "God, I never see your big man or your woman Denise up here anymore." So but it's just one of them things. So we've done that there. She got the Herceptin, and then 5 years later, so she had cancer in total for 10 years at this time. And then they told her she was terminal. Right, she had 26 tumours in her brain, and it spread from her breast. She had a mastectomy, but they must not caught all of it. So it spread from her breast into her ribs, down her spine, through her pelvis, liver, and then went to her brain. So she became very, I don't know, she almost became narcissistic, and it's crazy. So we were sitting eating our dinner one time in the kitchen, and my wife turned around and says, "I'm not eating that." Me and the 2 kids looked at her and says, "Why?" She goes, "Because you're trying to poison me." So I woke up in the middle of the night and you were going to suffocate me with a pillow.
She became a different person.
Yeah, completely. But at the time, my brain just didn't recognise what it was.
Yeah.
That it wasn't her, it was the cancer.
Yeah.
So my 2 kids looked at me as if I had done something wrong, because obviously their mother just said it, and do you know what I mean? So I just remember walking out the front door, and I woke up 2 weeks later in the Mater Hospital. They were going to section me. My mind just went. So
yes.
I ended up homeless, walking the streets. I didn't tell my family, didn't tell nobody, my brother, sisters.
You had a full mental breakdown.
A full mental breakdown, yeah. So I was living on the streets where, all the drug addicts and, alcoholics and everything else, and I got into trouble with the cops. I started taking cocaine and swapping my medication and stuff and blah, blah, blah. And I ended up getting a jail sentence. But so for about 4 years, I was actually out of in and out of the house type thing, because it was one of them things where we'd be sitting talk. She'd phone me and say, "Mum, we'll go for a drive." So we would go for a drive. We're sitting down, looking at the sea, right? And then she turned around and says, like, "I still want to know who you were that night." I says, "What night?" And she says, "The night you and my brother went to a party." I mean, that was 30 years ago. What are you talking about? It's crazy the way,
yeah.
So I don't know. I went to a party 30 years ago with your brother. I don't know where it was. Ask your brother. You know what I mean? But and then it was like she wouldn't talk to me, and then, sure. I actually hadn't seen her the kids for a year and a half when I first had my mental breakdown. Do you know what I mean? And I just thought as if because I've known her nearly as long as I knew my parents and everything else, because I came out of the coma, you see, right? So it actually was as if my whole life was just pulled out of me, I was a shell of what I was, you know what I mean?
Goodness.
And I actually took loads of, it was a guy who owed me 30 quid for about 3 months, right? And I didn't think I was ever going to get it back. No, but see the night that I took an overdose of all my tablets, that was the night that he came with his wee lad to give me the 30 quid.
Oh my goodness.
And so he ended up, I had to go to the hospital and get my stomach pumped and blah, 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 and, so, by the way, I still never got my 30 quid, he still owes me 30 quid. I don't know what he done with that, but anyway, so it ended up saving my life.
After your mental breakdown and then your time in prison,
yes,
that was very instrumental in your life. That was
a year after my wife had passed away, I ended up getting a jail sentence because I kept on saying, not guilty, not guilty. So after my wife passed away, I just said, I pleaded guilty and I got 5 years. I deserved 2 or something, whatever. So I was up in McGabry and they sent me down to, I was there for like 2 or 3 weeks. Up in McGabry, you go there first and then SS, and then they sent me down to McGilligan, right? And I was in a place called Halbert House. It's one of like the old buildings or whatever, and it was the warmest day of the year. The windows were bolted shut. You're in a 6x6 cell, and I have a CPAP machine because I have severe obstructional sleep apnea. So I remember sitting in this cell, like sweating razor blades down my head, and I said, I can't hack this. So a guy called Glenn Smith came down to get some coffee because his bag hadn't come down in the bus. And he said, have you ever thought of going to creative writing? And I says, listen, mate, I've never read a book in my life. He says to me, listen, I just, I told him what happened and all. He says, well, just go over, there's a coffee machine. Hear me, listen, I'm going. If there's a coffee machine, I'm going. So I went over and there was a girl called Pamela Brown. She worked for the Prison Arts Foundation. And we were just sitting talking. I mean, the first time that I went in and I started talking to her, we call her the White Witch because she put a spell on me. Now, and I don't know what happened to me, but it transformed my life. It's almost as if, like, the bars and the razor wire all just disappeared. For the first time in my life, because I went through the 15 years of illness with my wife and my mental breakdown, I never felt freer, even though I was in jail. And I started writing poetry. I'd done all my mourning for my wife, for losing my wife in jail. From once I got into creative writing, it transformed me. You thought I owned the place. I swear to mighty God. It was, I can gladly say it was the best experience in my life. It really, for the first time in such a long time, because it came all through the troubles and then my wife's cancer, it almost as if jail set me free. Now Fred Caulfield from the Prison Arts Foundation, he came a couple of times, and I won, him and Pamela, they had entered. Now Pamela's written loads of books. She'd be one of the smartest people that I would ever know. And so he said, look, why don't you enter the competition? Like Kessler and Listowel. And so we started putting it all in. And we won the most awards between all the prisons. And, I won several myself, you know what I mean? And like, I'd never had a certificate for anything, do you know what I mean? I felt as if, this is, so I would love to actually see what the prison arts actually done and what to do in the prisons. Like, it gets people off drugs, gives them a sense of achievement. And not only that, because I'd never read a book, the only book I'd ever read, Pamela told me to read, was Steinbeck for Mice and Men. And the guy, Laurie, is it Laurie? I think it's Laurie in it. And when I read it over the weekend, I went in and I said to Pamela, you're trying to make a fool out of me? He said, what do you mean? Because I associated myself with that character not being the full shilling, and I thought maybe they knew my background and my history. And she said, no, Liam, I had no idea. And so I was telling her, and she went, Liam. And she says, even though I thought I had a brilliant childhood, and I told her I had a brilliant childhood, and then she says, well, why don't you start writing it down? And see, when I started writing it down, her chin hit the floor, and she says, Liam, see, before you do anything else, you have to read, this story has to be told. We streets of Kabul, so dark and so grey, Street lamps all busted from rats and affray. Outlaws with trolleys are rushed to their feet, searching for bargains to make tight ends meet. A big pot of stew on a cold winter's night, slapped in the big bowls for families just right. The heel of a loaf to soak up a juice, pass me the HP at dinner time truce. The old days in Belfast I remember so well. We were beat to the ground and dragged up through hell. We grew up with nothing no materialistic things, but in Belfast in them days, we did live like kings.
From that then came this book of poetry.
The book of poetry.
Which is very, very poignant.
Yes.
Really, it's interesting and funny, but poignant at the same time.
Well, see, what happened was I wanted to kind of advertise what the Prison Arts Foundation done for me. So a guy called Kieran Murray, he owns a jewellers, Murray Jewellers in Talbot Street. So I was my friend like for years, right? I know him a long time. And he says to me, look, I'll give you the money to get the books printed. So he actually gave me the money. Me and Pamela went around and he just gave me a cheque to get the books printed. So I got like 100 books, the poetry books printed. So any time the Prison Arts Foundation was running out of funding and they were planning to the lottery and stuff like that there. So Fred said to me, Liam, would you come down and do a bit of your poetry? Let them see what we're actually achieving here.
Exactly, yeah.
And I said, all right, no problem. So I went down. Listen, I had them all around the table. I was telling them, doing all my poetry and all. But listen, it was just, it was 14 and 14 got a book. And then if somebody else came in, and it was just a way of just advertising what it done for me. I told them about my childhood. I told them about my wife's cancer, my mental breakdown. I'm not afraid to say to people I had a meltdown. At the start it was, when I first went into jail, they see the shame and all that I had felt, thinking I'm like 50 odd years of age and I'm going to jail. Like, there was a certain amount of stigma attached of not wanting to tell anybody and that. But see, once I started creative writing, listen, it changed my life. I'd stand up in front of anybody and tell them, listen, I am the man I am today because of my past, my childhood, my wife's cancer, which was traumatic, and going to jail, my mental breakdown and going to jail. Like, not many people would admit. There was a wee cafe, it's the street, it was called the Grapevine. It's in the street where, right? Well, I was passing there one day, it was near closing time, and I was exhausted, and I sat down in the chair, and a girl came out, and I was homeless at the time. A girl came out called Greta, and Aaron, her husband, was the chef, had done all the cooking. She said, do you want a cup of coffee? I said, oh, thanks very much. And she gave me a cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. So I ended up like their adopted son. Do you know what I mean? I'm just, listen, I'm not telling a word of a lie. I was actually going around cafes at the end of the day and asking them, look, any food you're throwing out, would you give it to me? And I'm just, this is just exactly what happened.
Well, those are your experiences.
And so what I started going in the morning at 7 o'clock, getting them the hand to open up and all, and then she'd give me my breakfast. And then at the end of the day, say for talk's sake, they had stew on or mac and cheese or whatever it was, the specialities and whatever. And say they had their buns they had from like the day before, bags. I mean, like shopping bags of food. It was all I'll never forget her, and I'm actually going to tell her to watch this show because see what she done. What she done for me. I can't put it into words. Do you know what I mean?
So, yes. And then what prompted you to write the other book, Memories of a...
The Memoirs of a Belfast Boy?
Yeah, because it was written after your poetry book, wasn't it?
Yes. My first book, I didn't want it too political. I just wanted to write it from what I seen in my eyes. I didn't want no agenda, no nothing. Just this is from a child's point of view, growing up on the New Lodge Road. So, but when I started going to creative writing and telling Pamela my story, my childhood, and and she says, Liam, listen, you have to write that memoir before you do anything else. So I said, well, we've a poetry book near enough done now. So it's just a bit of editing to do, and then I'll start on the memoir.
So what are your hopes then for the future? How do you see yourself?
Let's see, to be honest, this is all kind of surreal to me, because I was always like in the background taking care of somebody else. Mm-hmm. That's just the way I was brought up. Like my mom had like one coat and one pair of shoes. You know what I mean? And so we were brought up with that type of, you know, make sure your kids have this and make sure everybody has everything else, and you're always left the last. So this is kind of surreal to me.
I know your time in jail was very colourful for you.
Yes.
And you told us a great yarn about, and they say eggs for fags. Tell us about that.
Right. I was only moved down to McGilligan, right? And on a Sunday, every Sunday, you get one hard-boiled egg, right? And then you get your cereal and your toast, you know, and your flask of coffee or tea, whatever it is. So I love egg and onion sandwiches, right? Every one of my favourites, right? So I was sitting there and you get one hard-boiled egg, and I was thinking, what are you supposed to do with one egg, like, you know? So there was only a few of us had tobacco, right? Mm-hmm. So I just got this sign up, and I just got this big bit of card, fags for eggs, and I stuck it at my cell door, and I was standing there and I was shouting, you know, down the corridor, you know, fags for eggs, fags for eggs. And the screw come up and he says, and he was killing himself laughing. He says, many times have you been in jail? I said, it's my first time. He says, are you serious? You thought you owned the place? So I ended up with a big plate of eggs like that there.
They were bringing you the eggs.
They were bringing me the eggs, and I was rolling them a couple of fags. So I ended up with like a dozen and a half eggs. So I gave them to the wee guy that works in the pantry, and he made me the egg and onions. So he got something. Yeah, if somebody gives you something, he should get something back. You know what I mean? So that's just the way it is. So he done me this big plate of egg. That night I went to bed and all. I had a big flask of tea and my egg and onion sandwiches with my mate and all, and I was thinking, like, it's actually not bad in here, like, you know. But it's just, see, sometimes the smallest thing, the smallest thing can mean the world to somebody else.
Exactly.
And that's why I want to go through life. You know, I want to continue writing. I want to help people to write themselves, because see what it done for me, it set me free. Yeah. See, writing it on paper, it was almost as if, you know, if everybody could do this and bury their demons, you know, because that's really what it done. So I would love to be in a position, you know, to actually help people. Like, listen, you know, like I go to creative writing in the Prison Arts Foundation the first Thursday and the third Thursday of every month. So if anybody's served time, they can come down and we'll take them through, you know, basic, you know, poetry, how to write a book, blah. And it's just, there's about, I would say it's about, now there's maybe a dozen or so down there that they convert books to Braille for charity.
Yeah, right.
But there's also an Norway section that are going to be doing painting, where you get taught painting, and then there's another section that we're in where they do creative writing. So I would love to be in a position, you know, to actually teach people what I learned.
Yeah,
you know, even though I have no degrees, no qualifications, all I have is experience.
Which is very important.
You know, and not only that, I have a good sense of humour, which goes a long way.
Well, you have a good sense of humour.
Even though I'm 59, I do moisturise, as you can see. You know what I mean?
I say that when people say to me about, you know, you've got older looking, I'll say, oh, my moisturiser mustn't be working.
Oh, no. My mum used to say, here, put that old of ugly on. You know what I mean? How do people start again when you've nothing left to give? No love to show your childhood crush from where you used to live. No squeezing her soft hand so tight while crossing busy roads. For every time she looked at you, your heart and mind explodes. We roll about the fresh cut grass as sunlight blinds our eyes, choking every chance we got to deafening laughing cries. We'd go and look for tadpoles while wading through the streams, pushing, shove and splash about to shrieks aloud and screams. We'd dry off in the midday sun, doing starface on the grass, slide down the hills of green so steep, me and my merry lass. Head to toe in daisy chains, with a flower in her hair. She had never looked so beautiful, to know her was to care. I was 10 and she was 12, we'd close our eyes and pray that our friendship was eternal, to forever and a day.